the heart of the ancient world, among marble columns and under the glow of oil lamps, a single manuscript was whispered about. A book so mysterious that its story slipped through history's cracks. Not the great library itself, but one forgotten work. Tonight, we follow the faint trail of that relic, a journey from Alexandria's brilliance, through centuries of silence, to the dim light of rediscovery. This is the story of the Lantern of Alexandria. Imagine standing on the shores of ancient Egypt. 2,000 years ago, before you, the city of Alexandria rises like a jewel of learning. The air smells of salt and parchment. Merchants unload scrolls from distant lands, while philosophers argue softly in shaded courtyards. At its heart, beyond the lighthouse that guided sailors, stood the library, a place where human thought gathered like stars in a constellation, and within its shelves rested a manuscript, unnoticed by most, but destined to leave echoes. This manuscript was no epic poem or political decree. It was instead a compendium of knowledge, part astronomy, part mechanics, part dream. The scroll contained careful sketches of planetary movements, primitive gears and strange devices powered by water. Margins carried notes from anonymous hands, layering insight upon insight. It was as if generations of minds had whispered into the parchment, each adding a small lantern of thought. Yet history often forgets the quiet works, and so too it nearly lost this one. The scholars of Alexandria studied tirelessly. Some debated Aristotle's teachings. Others gazed at the stars, charting constellations. Amid them, one or two may have unrolled this very scroll. Their fingers traced circles inked in black, diagrams of motion, fragments of a forgotten science. But wars loomed. Empires shifted. And what was once secure, knowledge, held in quiet, teetered on the edge of destruction. Still, the Lantern of Alexandria refused to vanish so easily. Then came fire, or perhaps it was neglect. History does not agree on how Alexandria's treasures faded. Some say Julius Caesar's troops sparked the flames. Others blame later invasions or the slow decay of time. But in the shadows of chaos, a single scholar is said to have smuggled the manuscript away. A figure unnamed, lost to us now. In the flicker of torchlight, carrying a roll of parchment beneath his robe, he slipped to the harbor, whispering goodbye to the lighthouse of Pharos. The boat rocked against the waves. The scholar rowed quietly, the manuscript secured beneath cloth. Behind him, Alexandria's glow faded into darkness. Ahead stretched only the sea and uncertainty. Did he know the weight of what he carried? Did he sense that centuries later, whispers of his secret voyage would remain? The parchment survived that night. But where it went next is obscured by history's silence. Legends tell that the manuscript found shelter in a monastery far from Egypt's sands. In the dim silence of stone walls, monks prayed, copied texts, and preserved forgotten wisdom. Candles dripped wax upon wooden desks in that quiet. One monk unrolled the ancient parchment, his eyes widened. Strange diagrams unlike scripture lay before him. Circles that mimicked planets. Wheels within wheels, not holy words. But knowledge as sacred as any psalm. The monk copied fragments by hand, though not all. Some symbols puzzled him. Some pages he left untouched, uncertain of meaning. Yet by writing even a portion, he allowed the Lantern of Alexandria to glow faintly in another age. Centuries later, these fragments would resurface, misplaced, translated, and folded into the growing body of medieval learning. But the original scroll itself remained hidden, tucked away like a sleeping ember. Europe stirred. The Middle Ages shifted toward curiosity, invention, and change. Among monasteries and universities, scholars pored over texts. Some encountered curious diagrams, circles, and mechanical sketches that seemed older than the Latin surrounding them. They puzzled at their origin. Who had drawn these? When? They could not know the parchment's birthplace. They could not hear Alexandria's waves. And yet, unknowingly, they carried fragments of its lantern forward. It is here that speculation becomes shadow. Did these drawings inspire the first clockmakers of Europe? Did they whisper into the notebooks of Leonardo da Vinci? We cannot say with certainty. But in the delicate gears of early machines, in the silent mathematics of astronomy, we see faint echoes, a hidden lineage, a thread tying Alexandria's forgotten manuscript to Renaissance brilliance, a lantern flickering unseen, guiding hands centuries apart. Picture the scriptorium of a medieval monastery. The only light comes from flickering candles, dripping wax onto worn oak tables. A monk bends over parchment, quill scratching faintly. Outside, the wind howls across stone walls. Inside, silence, broken only by the rhythm of copying. And on his desk lies the Lantern of Alexandria, a relic he does not fully understand, yet one that sparks questions he cannot silence. Some monks dismissed such texts, too strange, too secular, perhaps even dangerous. But others, they sensed something within. Curiosity overcame caution, and so the manuscript endured, not as a celebrated relic, but as a quiet intruder among psalms and sermons. In this way, the lantern passed unnoticed through generations, its light flickering but never extinguished. As centuries turned, Europe began to change. Cathedrals rose, trade flourished, and whispers of ancient wisdom stirred curiosity once more. Scholars sought knowledge wherever they could find it. Arabic texts translated from Greek. Lost works resurfaced in dusty corners. And within this exchange, the fragments of Alexandria's manuscript may have stirred again, hidden, perhaps, inside a stack of copied codices bound for Italy or France. Enjoying this video? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. The Renaissance dawned. Artists and inventors looked backward to move forward, reviving forgotten ideas. And while we cannot point to the Lantern of Alexandria in their hands, we see hints of its spirit, in drawings of gears and planetary diagrams, in the strange mixture of science and imagination, in the audacity to believe the universe could be mapped, measured, even understood. Think of Leonardo da Vinci sketching flying machines centuries ahead of their time. Think of astronomers charting the heavens with newfound precision. Did the lantern burn softly in their imagination? Perhaps only as a whisper, a suggestion. But even whispers can shape destiny. Still, history rarely rewards anonymity. The manuscript's origins remained uncredited. No scholar praised the anonymous Alexandrian hand. No monument was raised to the monk who preserved it. Instead, the knowledge slipped quietly into the bloodstream of history, feeding minds without ever revealing its name. Obscurity became its fate, and yet also its triumph. And so centuries rolled on. Wars erupted, kingdoms rose and fell, libraries burned, and with them countless works. Yet the Lantern of Alexandria, whether whole or in fragments, refused to vanish. Like a river disappearing underground only to resurface miles later, its wisdom reappeared in unexpected places. A diagram in a clockmaker's notes, a symbol in an alchemist's book, a sketch tucked in a scholar's margin. By the Enlightenment, curiosity burned brighter than ever. Philosophers spoke of reason and progress. Scientists built telescopes to peer into the heavens, microscopes to probe the unseen. Many believed they were charting entirely new ground, yet beneath their discoveries lay echoes of the old, ancient seeds sown in Alexandria, sprouting centuries later in the soil of Europe. If you trace inventions backward, clocks, astrolabes, even early automata, you may glimpse faint fingerprints. The Lantern of Alexandria flickers there, unseen, not in bold recognition, but in shadows, in the corners of footnotes, in whispers carried from hand to hand across time. A reminder that knowledge is rarely born in isolation. It is carried, hidden, shared. And still, questions remain. What became of the original manuscript? Was it lost to moth and mildew in some forgotten chest? Was it destroyed in war, its ashes scattered in the wind? Or does it still wait somewhere in a private collection, unrecognized for what it truly is? History often hides its greatest treasures not in plain sight, but in dust and silence. Imagine for a moment that it survived, rolled tightly, bound in leather, stored in a monastery cellar or a noble's library, forgotten, untouched, and imagine it discovered today, its diagrams unfurling once more after centuries of silence. How would we see it now? Not as fragments, but as a whole lantern, illuminating how ancient minds dreamed of mechanics, of the cosmos, of possibility. The thought is both thrilling and humbling. Thrilling, because it reminds us of how much still lies hidden. Humbling, because it shows us how fragile knowledge can be. A single war, a single flame, a single careless hand could erase centuries of thought. And yet, against all odds, pieces of the lantern endured. A miracle, not of glory, but of quiet persistence. This is the paradox of history. What survives is often not what was most celebrated, but what was most fortunate. A random choice, a hidden shelf, a forgotten chest. Obscurity can be as powerful as fame, and sometimes obscurity is what saves. Tonight, as we whisper of Alexandria's lantern, perhaps we also whisper of our own age. What will endure of us? Which of our countless words, images, and inventions will drift into the future? Which will vanish without a trace? The manuscript's survival asks us to reflect, not only on the past, but on the fragility of memory itself. For history is not a straight line. It is a mosaic, broken and reassembled, with missing pieces that invite imagination. The Lantern of Alexandria is one such piece, a shard of brilliance, glimpsed in fragments, never whole. Yet in those fragments, we glimpse something profound, that knowledge travels not always in triumph, but in whispers, carried by those willing to guard it in silence. And so we remember, not with certainty, but with reverence. We remember the unnamed scholar who carried the manuscript into the night, the nameless monk who copied what he could, the countless hands that passed fragments forward, unknowingly preserving echoes. To them, history owes thanks. To them, we owe this story. The Lantern of Alexandria may never be found in full. Its voice may remain faint. But perhaps that is fitting. Some lights are not meant to blind with brilliance, but to glow softly, guiding us in subtle ways. We may not see its flame directly, but we feel its warmth in the inventions and ideas it inspired. And so we close the scroll. We let the manuscript rest, as it has for centuries. We accept that history is never complete, but always reaching toward the obscured, the forgotten, the hidden, toward lanterns left unlit, waiting for someone to strike a spark. As the candlelight fades, we are left with quiet gratitude. Gratitude for the fragments that endured, gratitude for the unknown keepers of knowledge, and gratitude for the mystery itself. For it is mystery that compels us to seek, to listen, to wonder. This has been the story of the Lantern of Alexandria. Thank you for joining me, in silence and in curiosity. If these whispers of history have stirred you, I invite you to subscribe, so together we may continue uncovering the obscured, the forgotten, and the hidden. Until next time, keep listening to the quiet echoes of the past.